Hi, if you're new here, welcome. We're going to get you started working with Thunderbolt on your UGREEN NAS. A lot of people have been requesting how to get this to work, and so I thought I'd make this video to help people out. For anyone who's already subscribed, essentially it's a NAS system that I already own. Essentially it's a network attached storage system by UGREEN. I was part of the Kickstarter campaign and I happen to have one. And if you're running out of movie files or space or video game space or whatever it is, it's a pretty good system to get into. But I wanted to make this video because before, when you tried to set up Thunderbolt with the NAS, you had to use the command prompt. But recently, they came out with an awesome update that allows you to do it natively within the NAS, which is fantastic. I'm still going to show both methods, however, because some people want to know how to do that, and some people run into speed problems. It's not getting the top speed that it should be, and sometimes the command line prompt way will fix that. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're working with this and trying to get Thunderbolt to work is you have to make sure you go into your network connections, and you have to make sure that Thunderbolt networking is one of your active networks right here. This has to be here. If it's not, restart your computer. I've noticed with my computer, I have to sometimes completely shut it off and turn it back on to get this to even show up sometimes. It's really annoying. But yeah, just make sure you Thunderbolt networking. This should show up when you plug your NAS in on the front of the NAS. This should show up on Windows. I'm not sure how it works on Mac, but it should still be pretty straightforward on your Mac too. But on Windows, this is what should show up. Thunderbolt networking. And also make sure that the ports on your computer are actually Thunderbolt ports. A lot of laptops have it. There's very few desktops that have it that are Windows based. That started becoming a thing recently. So just make sure they're true Thunderbolt ports. So here we are in the NAS, and the first thing we're going to want to do is go to Control Panel, and once in here we're going to go to Network. You want to make sure that when you go over to Network Connection that you see that Thunderbolt connection in here. This is the native way they're doing it now. You can actually just find it right in the NAS under Network Connection, Thunderbolt Connected. Here's the thing though, and this is something that I also had to figure out on my own. This Thunderbolt connection is active, and if you hook it up now through SMB on your computer, which SMB is like, it's working as a network drive on your system. So what you do is you go to this PC, you go up here, and you'd say, map a network drive. And this is where you would designate how you can just use the folders within your NAS without having to even go into like the NAS's UI and all that stuff. You can just use it like it's a normal folder in Windows, which is great. But you might want Thunderbolt speeds with other things like backups and transferring files to the NAS through the UI. Like you might want all the UI benefits of the NAS with all the Thunderbolt speeds. And before, when you're using the command line, you could only do this with SMB. Now you can get it working with the NAS as well. If I go back in here, but what you have to do is after you set up this Thunderbolt connection, and you set up the IP for it and everything else, which by the way, I recommend using a static IP here. That's different because your IP for your LAN connection is different than the one for Thunderbolt if you have LAN connected. I happen to have a LAN port connected and Thunderbolt. So what I had to do is you have to log out of the NAS. So you go to your profile, you log out, and then when you log back in, and you use the IP of the Thunderbolt, not the LAN. So I will click the one that is my Thunderbolt connection. And that will log me back in. And now everything is on Thunderbolt connected speeds, which is fantastic. I've been waiting for this for so long. I've been wanting this. But back to network. Just make sure that this is set up properly, that your IP address is in here. I'm not sure what happens when you do automatically because I set it up like myself manually right off the gate. I think that's just a safe bet. You know which IP it is, write it down somewhere, know what it is, and put it in. Also, make sure your MTU value is 9,000. I don't know the math behind, I don't understand. I just know that that gets it to be high speeds. It sends the most packets or something like that. It just keeps it at a high speed, so you want to do that. So that's how you get Thunderbolt working directly with the UGREEN NAS on your computer, and it should work. Leave a comment if you're running into a specific problem that maybe I don't remember how I fixed it, and it'll jog my memory and I can help you, hopefully. So just leave a comment if you're having issues. Now for the command line portion, I'm going to set this up for people who only care about the SMB connection through their Windows Explorer window, and they don't care about using all the other features than that. They just want fast, reliable SMB connection, drop files in, what have you, right? So let me show you how that's done. So the command line way, or PowerShell, whichever one you want to use, which I'd recommend PowerShell because you can go back to things that you've done previously in the past, previous commands to quickly do this, and you're going to have to do this every single time if you restart the NAS or your computer, which is a pain in the butt. So what you're going to do is you're going to SSH into your NAS. So make sure you have SSH enabled on your computer and on your NAS, which is also in the network settings. So just enable those things. And the first thing you want to do is SSH into the NAS, which would be SSH, and then let's see, the port number that you'll be using, which I also believe is in the network settings of the NAS. So you do the port number, and then your username and the IP of the NAS. So in my case, username Michael, and then and then the IP of the NAS, which then is going to prompt you for your password. So put that in to get into your NAS. Great, now that you put the password in, you can move on to the next step. Now you're inside of the Linux, basically the Linux OS that's running your NAS. Now that you're in here though, we're going to use the command sudo su, this command right here, and that's going to get us into the root. So it's going to ask you for the password again, just to be safe. Great, now we're fully inside the Debian or Debian, I'm not really sure how people say it, Linux OS. And from the root of this, we can now control the Thunderbolt. So I have a few commands that are super useful for this, and I'll put them in the description below, so that way it's easier for everyone to just copy and paste. But the first one, and I'll just put them up here, so it makes it easier to figure out. But what the first one does is the first one's going to switch to root, which we already did. So we start in PowerShell, we SSH in, the name, the IP, sudo su to get to root. And then this first one, echo Thunderbolt net, this essentially is going to ensure that your Thunderbolt networking is enabled every time you boot up the system. So you don't have to keep doing it every time. Now you still have to set up Thunderbolt over IP every time, but it'll load your settings, which we're about to also add. So this next command right here, this automatically sets up your Thunderbolt to use those settings. So it saves a config modules load file, and then this is your settings. So you want it to auto to Thunderbolt 0, because there's 0 and 1. There's 2 Thunderbolt ports on the NAS. It autos to Thunderbolt 0. It makes sure that that you're running at NTU 9000, like we talked about with the UI. So that's in there too. So it's going to be running at NTU 9000, and it's going to give it an address that's static. So this is an example. This is an example of a static address, NTU 9000. It sets it up to work with Thunderbolt 0 port, automatically boot it, give you a static IP, and give you MTU of 9000. These next settings, right after we do that, the sudo nano network interface, this is just to check your settings, and you can actually edit your settings from here, because you don't want to keep doing this top part. You don't want to keep doing this every time. You set up the settings, they're saved. Now let's say you want to edit those settings. Well, you can do that with this command right here. And this will allow you to look at what your settings are, and you can make changes to those if need be. So how do we view those settings though? This right here, IP address show Thunderbolt 0, this will show you your settings. So actually let's go through that. So if I were to plug that in, I'll just go here. And the reason I'm skipping straight to this step is because I already have Thunderbolt set up through the UI. I don't want to screw stuff up. But this is showing me right here that I have Thunderbolt set up. It's showing me my IP that it's set up to, and it's showing me which Thunderbolt is a 0 or 1. So which Thunderbolt is set up, what NTU it has, and then also what address it's using. So it's giving you all that same information that I set up in the UI, but it's just showing it here on the command line. And it'll do the same thing when you're setting it up through here. But this is the big one. Let's say you go in and you see that this MTU is not changing, because when you do this through the command line, a lot of times you'll be like, why is my MTU not 9000? I changed it to 9000. It's not changing. When I look up the stats with the interface Thunderbolt, with the last command, the sudo nano, right here, when you try to look it up through this, or when you try to look it up through this, it'll keep saying MTU 1000 or MTU 100 or whatever it is. You're supposed to do a network reset. I find this doesn't actually work properly, and I don't like using this. It kind of makes it all jank and doesn't work. So I recommend actually just disabling the Thunderbolt and then re-enabling it. That's what these two do. You're going to disable it with this, IF down, and you're going to re-enable it with IF up. And that's going to refresh it's going to refresh the options that you set up for the Thunderbolt connection earlier and get it working again. So then when you check it again by doing IP address show, it should show the correct information. Your static IP, the MTU packets, and everything there. So there you go. That's how you get Thunderbolt working on your UGREEN NAS. Hopefully that helped. And just so people are understanding exactly what's going on here, let me show you the speeds that you get with this through SMB or through the NAS. But I'm going to show you through SMB. It's pretty crazy, and these are pretty giant movie files too. And also worth noting, I have the 6-bay version of the NAS. On the 4-bay, you won't get as big of an increase because you don't have as many drives working in tandem, but it should still be pretty big increase. So here is the SMB share of my NAS. These are all the folders on my NAS, but they're native here right in the Windows Explorer. And let me just do a transfer really quick and show you how fast this can be. This is a big one. This is a music video I just shot. It's 176 gigabytes. This is perfect. I need a backup of this anyway. So let me just grab communicate and I will move it over and we'll see how fast it is. As you can see, I'm hitting almost 700 megabits a second. Might even go higher every once in a while. 750. Shoots down, goes back up, 720, 800, 810, 830. Sometimes it'll peak at 1,000. Which is nuts, because most people don't think you can get up to 1,000 on hard drives, but with 6 of them you can. And this is without anything crazy. I did this even without a cache, and I still have base RAM on this NAS. I don't have anything crazy. I didn't upgrade the RAM, nothing. I did finally add a cache just because I had an extra NVMe lying around, but it's not doing anything. Like, even without any cache at all, still hitting those numbers. It's pretty awesome. And it allows you to transfer things pretty quickly. So I can transfer, almost 200 gigabytes in like 3 minutes, which is awesome. The only thing faster than that is NVMe to NVMe. So this is pretty great, especially considering it's 72 terabytes of storage, which is nuts. So there you go. Get to cracking, make some cool stuff, save all your important files, and subscribe if this helped you out. And leave a comment below if you have any questions or are struggling, and I'll try to do my best to help you through the comment section. So yeah, have a good day.